Gasoline prices could rise sharply in the coming days, and some economists are warning that the increase could happen faster than many people expect. In fact, several analysts believe fuel prices could jump by as much as $1 per gallon almost overnight if global oil markets tighten. But the big question now being asked by economists is simple. Why might gasoline prices suddenly surge again? Energy markets react quickly to global uncertainty. Oil markets are among the most sensitive financial markets in the world. Even the possibility of supply disruptions can cause prices to move dramatically within hours. Traders constantly monitor geopolitical developments, especially in regions responsible for a large share of global energy production. The Middle East remains one of the most critical energy-producing regions on the planet. A large portion of the world's oil supply either originates from this region or passes through nearby shipping routes before reaching global markets. Because of this, any instability there tends to send immediate shockwaves through energy markets. Recent geopolitical tensions involving the United States and Iran have raised concerns about the stability of oil supply in the region. When tensions rise in areas that play such a major role in global energy production, traders begin pricing in the possibility of reduced supply. Even if no immediate disruption occurs, the fear of potential conflict can push oil prices upward. Markets operate on expectations. If investors believe there is a risk that oil shipments could be interrupted, they begin adjusting prices immediately. Why higher fuel prices affect everything? To understand why rising gas prices create such widespread economic pressure, it helps to look at how deeply energy costs are embedded within the economy. Transportation is one of the most obvious connections. Nearly every product sold in the United States travels by truck at some point in the supply chain. From consumer electronics to groceries, goods must move across long distances before reaching store shelves. When fuel prices rise, trucking companies face higher operating costs. Those companies then pass those costs to retailers, who ultimately pass them to consumers. Manufacturing costs are also affected. Factories rely on energy for machinery, heating, cooling, and transportation of raw materials. When energy prices rise, production costs increase. Businesses then face a difficult choice: absorb those costs or raise prices for customers. In most cases, prices eventually rise. Energy prices also affect services that consumers rely on every day. Airlines, delivery companies, construction firms, and even local businesses must account for rising fuel costs. Over time, these increases spread across multiple industries. The ripple effect on household budgets. For American households, higher fuel prices can create immediate financial strain. Gasoline is one of the few expenses consumers track closely because they see the price displayed every time they visit a gas station. A difference of even 50 cents per gallon can quickly add up. For families that rely on driving to work, school, or other daily activities, higher fuel costs can increase monthly transportation expenses significantly. Many households already operate on tight budgets. Rising rent, food prices, and borrowing costs have made it difficult for families to maintain financial stability. If gasoline prices rise sharply again, it could push many households closer to their financial limits. Stories of people putting only small amounts of fuel into their vehicles are becoming increasingly common. In some cases, drivers add just enough gas to reach their next paycheck. Situations like this highlight how sensitive household finances have become to even minor price changes. How governments respond to energy price surges. When energy prices rise rapidly, governments often face pressure to respond. High fuel costs can slow economic growth and reduce consumer spending, which can ultimately weaken the broader economy. One of the tools available to policymakers is the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. The United States maintains this reserve as a safeguard against major supply disruptions. In periods of market stress, oil can be released into the market to increase supply and help stabilize prices. This strategy has been used before. In 2022, the U.S. government released a large amount of oil from the reserve in response to rising energy prices following geopolitical tensions in Europe. The additional supply helped bring gasoline prices down after they had surged to extremely high levels. However, the reserve is not a permanent solution. Releasing oil can temporarily increase supply, but it does not change the long-term balance between global production and demand. Over time, the reserve must be replenished, and its size is limited. The inflation challenge facing policymakers. One of the biggest concerns associated with rising energy prices is inflation. Fuel costs influence many other prices throughout the economy, which means energy shocks can trigger broader inflationary pressure. Central banks, including the Federal Reserve, have been working to control inflation through higher interest rates. Higher borrowing costs help slow economic activity and reduce price pressures over time. However, energy-driven inflation presents a unique challenge. If fuel prices surge due to geopolitical events, central banks have limited tools to respond. Raising interest rates does not directly increase oil supply. At the same time, lowering interest rates could worsen inflation if energy costs are already pushing prices higher. This creates a difficult balancing act for policymakers. Economic relief measures being discussed. Because of these risks, some policymakers and analysts believe economic relief measures may eventually be considered if fuel prices surge significantly. These measures could take several forms. Governments sometimes consider temporary tax adjustments, rebates, or targeted support programs designed to offset rising costs for consumers. Energy subsidies, tax credits for efficiency improvements, or assistance programs for lower-income households are examples of policies that have been used in the past. The goal of these measures is usually to provide temporary relief while markets stabilize. However, policymakers must balance relief with fiscal responsibility. Large government spending programs can increase deficits and potentially contribute to inflation if not carefully structured. The bottom line for American consumers: at the moment, uncertainty remains the dominant theme. Energy markets are reacting to geopolitical developments, and economists are trying to determine how those reactions might affect the broader economy. For consumers, the most immediate impact could appear at the gas pump. If fuel prices rise sharply, the ripple effects could spread across multiple sectors of the economy. While policymakers have tools that could help reduce the pressure, those tools often provide only temporary relief. The coming weeks will likely determine whether the situation stabilizes or evolves into a more significant economic challenge. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to like the video, subscribe for more financial and economic analysis, and share your thoughts in the comments about how rising fuel prices are affecting your household budget.